I'm excited to be on because there are so many factors involved with the admissions process that, Matthew, I understand you're a senior, and other seniors like yourself are sort of going through the process of better understanding. And there's the transcripts, letters of recommendation. Sometimes you have to interview, then there's the tests, and of course the essay. And so today our focus is going to be on the essay, and hope that after attending this workshop, you have a better grasp of how the essay has the potential to open doors in helping you tell the story only you can tell, right? Everyone has a unique experiences and talents and skills to share to any college or university. And so the essay is one way to demonstrate and talk about it. My name's Erika Hernandez. I am founder and owner of Rise Above Yourself, LLC. I opened and launched in 2020 in the hopes to reach as many students and families in the admissions process while also sort of grasping and understanding the financial aid planning behind that process. So getting in and affording the costs. And I'm really excited today because I'm joined by my colleague, Jessica Feliciano, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Feliciano. I am from Texas originally and live here in the greater Austin area. And I have been helping students over the last 15 years apply to different colleges and universities, as well as independent day and private schools. So excited to be here and collaborate with Erica. One of the things that Erica highlighted is that there are all these pieces to the application process that have in many ways already been set, right? Like your transcript for the most part, yes, you have senior year left for those of you who are about to be seniors, but that is for the most part already set. You're already thinking about letters of recommendation from teachers where you've already been in those classrooms. You've already kind of been on this track with your different extracurriculars. So a lot of kind of portions of your application have already been set, but the essay is really the place where you have the biggest control over what you want to say and what you want the admissions officers to know about you. One of the biggest hurdles, I think, for families to really get started or students to really get started on this essay is this need to feel like you need to have this very extraordinary story, right? Like you might think to yourself, I really have nothing to say because, I'm not a kid that, like, I don't know, climbed Mount Everest or like went on this crazy journey or did this like crazy thing, right? And so everyone who is about to embark on that journey of writing all these essays feels the same way you do. That, like, oh my gosh, I need an extraordinary story. I need to like figure that out now. What am I going to say? When the reality is, in this process, when admissions officers are looking at your essays, they're not really admitting you based on whatever like experiences you want to share. They're really focusing on admitting people, right? They want to get to know you and what makes you tick and what makes you so special and why you're a fit for their campus. So the way to really think about this essay is you're not telling someone XYZ happened to me. You're really trying to say XYZ happened to me and this is what I learned from it, or this is how it impacted me, and this is how like it has shaped my worldview. Really, it's about how you think, how you've grown, how you've processed whatever it is that experience it is you're talking about, right? We've seen essays written about like the most mundane things, but they turn out to be very extraordinary because we've gotten a really good view into kind of a student's life. And so that's just something we really wanted to throw out there. There's this kind of sense of it has to be this perfect story and like very out there when that is not the case, right? It just has to be true to who you are and really explaining everything that makes you a unique candidate for their school.
So today, we just jump into it, but also we want students and families to walk away with 5 things everyone should know about the process. And we're going to see a case study. We're going to have a discussion on it. And then you're going to end with an activity that we can debrief specifically on the personal statement. So jumping right into the 5 things you should know is the focus. It's really easy to say, like, don't forget to make it about you. I think every counselor in every high school, every consultant tries to work with each individual student to make their story as unique, but then it's up to the student to make it about them. So I wanted to briefly share an experience I had with a student who had done that process, and kind of, parents, this is about you and creating boundaries for yourself. So I'd worked with a student who was interested in going into business. They wrote a story about a class they had taken and maybe some of the limited programs they had involved with themselves in that relates to business, right? They wrote the essay on that unique understanding of the very limited business experience they had. What came away when I met with them the next time through the draft process is a story about their grandpa and their grandpa's experience in business and pulling himself up out of his bootstraps. I immediately knew that was not the student's writing, because one, and this is true for all seniors, their experience is very different. I hardly ever hear the word bootstraps anymore. So I knew that the parent had stepped in and sort of cuddled and made sure that the story was going to be an experience that they thought the admissions officer may relate to. But it is absolutely not the truth. We want it to be true. And this is a generation that has a different experiences than the parents and adults and the guardians taking care of them. And so when we say the focus is about you, it's about any experience that you want to touch on that helps you relate to the prompt or the question or the field of study you're going into. And going back to what Jessica was saying, sometimes that feels like, oh, like that's not my peer who did, who started a nonprofit. No, it's not, but it's your experience and your understanding through the experience. So really, when you think about the topic you're going to choose to write, it should at least minimally be exciting to you. And maybe your parents don't understand it yet, or maybe your admissions counselor doesn't get it quite yet, but your job as a senior is to help them understand why you chose it. And that enthusiasm and excitement will inevitably come out through you talking about it.
And it's easy, guys, to be like, well, for your like sense of self to get lost in the essay, right? Like I'm thinking of another student I worked with last year who was talking about a friend who made him realize something, but he spent a lot of time on the friend. And I'm like, no, cut what the friend, how, like, okay, great, you had this realization based on what your friend said. Like, limit that and actually bring it back to you. So, again, you can include all these other characters in your personal statement that were like impactful. That is fine. But you have to bring it back and like make it about you and like your process of learning and how those other people are the side characters who impacted you. Don't let them become the main characters of your essay. It's very easy to kind of get there, and just make sure that like you come back and make it about you. What are some things to avoid writing what you think colleges want? It is very easy to kind of get into the mind space of like, all right, I'm going to try to game this system and like, I think this is what they want to hear, right? Maybe you, I don't know, do some, like when you're writing about the supplements and the why do you want to go here, maybe that's where you can include some of that. But like Erica said, you want to appear as your genuine self, and people will know when you are not being genuine and when this doesn't really resonate and you're just trying to, um, you think you want, you're trying to like impress the school based on what you think they are going to hear. And so again, we don't want your authentic voice to get lost just because you think that this is what colleges want to hear.
And so the tough part about it is this very first draft is an essay to any college or university, right? Because that's genuinely you, and that's who you are going to be, regardless of any college or university you try to like build your understanding of who they are. But ultimately they want to find out like, who are you? And then how are you going to relate, which is where supplementals come in. But right now we're talking about the personal statement, the core of you. And so when you highlight that experience, it's also not retelling the experience. It's talking about the transformation of you. So like a quick structure, which I never write out. I like to talk my students through it, is like never write it out, because then students think it's like this specific format, but it's not. But if I were to look at the personal statement, it would like maybe give like 6 sentences, if that, maybe 2 sentences of like retelling the experience. So it's like one paragraph, like this is what happened, this is who was involved, and then it becomes, and this is what happened, this is a transformation of what and how I grew from that. And it means that you're demonstrating like these are some of the problem solving skills I've applied from that experience to clubs or through problem solving that I've had in these different projects. These are the values that I, began to understand in myself from that experience, and this is how I applied it elsewhere. And those highlights are really highlights of how you applied what you've learned from that experience in all the different places you've applied it to, in clubs, in your community, maybe helping in younger students understand things about themselves through leadership you've taken. And that growth, curiosity, and resilience and values is really what comes out of those additional drafts you have to take. Right? It's not going to be in your first draft. It's going to be in like your third or fourth draft. So I want to just also highlight that, because the first draft is figuring out the experience, understanding how it transformed you, and then in the other drafts, it's okay. Now I need to like figure out where it's applied in other parts of my life.
And usually the personal statement kind of by default always takes on this structure. Even if you're not trying to aim for this like exact structure, this is usually how it goes, right? You tell a beginning and it's like a catchy story or very descriptive of whatever you're trying to tell. Then you go into like the story or like, what is that either challenge or like tension that you experienced or like thing that you went through. You reflect on kind of how that experience led to these things that Erica wanted to highlight, right? The growth, the curiosity, the resilience, the values you got from it. And then the conclusion of like, why does this all matter to you? And how does this impact you as a person that is about to kind of go into college? And what can you bring to the table as a result of this experience, right? And so, in general, this is kind of how you end up structuring the story. But again, when you're starting out, you're just like, how do I get to this point? And so when you're brainstorming, you probably really want to start with this like story beginning part. Like, what is what is an experience or something that I really want to share with them that really highlights who I am? And then this is where you tease out, like, well, what did I actually learn from it and why is it important to me as a person?
And so, you are the only one who could tell the story, right? AI could never tell you a story. So then their question is, do you use AI or not? And I would like to be an idealist and say, like, no, you don't. Right? Like, absolutely not. But the truth is, students are. And the way I've seen students use it, because it's this new innovation that is helping us think through and meet deadlines and maybe start conversations. So the way students have used it is to research some colleges and universities or generate ideas on how to research colleges that maybe they didn't visit. And the example I will use is a student was applying to Johns Hopkins here from California. I'm located in the Bay Area. They are in Southern California. They've never visited Johns Hopkins, but they had known its reputation to be a solid one to go on to med school. So they thought. And they would not have the chance to go visit Johns Hopkins. And despite my encouragement to meet the admissions person in person when they visited the school, that did not happen. So I acknowledge, like, there's other steps you could do aside from AI research on this. But because they had it and they were determined to apply to Johns Hopkins from California, what they used it was like, here is my personal statement. Here, take all my personal information, AI, right? And then like, say in what ways would I like, be a candidate for John Hopkins. AI is going to always be positive, right? AI is never going to mean that it's like, you are not a candidate. You would have to like say, I'm failing every class. I am not going to graduate high school in order to not be a candidate in AI's world for John Hopkins. But they've done all that. So AI responded with like, this is these are they just regurgitated all the information from the website. Like, these are the types of classes that students normally take in high school to be competitive candidates to John Hopkins. And so how that transforms into an essay is, well, you didn't take those classes, right? So how are you going to tell in the supplemental or in another part of your essay that the reason you didn't take it? And it came out that their high school just didn't offer it, but they had taken community college class. So we wrote that as part of their supplemental to say like, hey, like, you didn't do this, which is your understanding would make a competitive candidate. And instead you did this. They didn't think to immediately do that or even bring it up in conversation with me or anyone else. So an AI helps with understanding, brainstorming, and researching a specific university, but it's not good at the core of like coming up with the idea for you. In the way I've seen it be done, used terribly as of right now, is a student's like, I need a personal statement about winning the championship soccer game. That is just like, it's gonna throw out trash, and any system would just toss it. Jessica, you were going to add to that.
Well, I mean, everyone around the country is probably doing that, right? And so your essay is just going to sound like every other potential essay. Like, not maybe that variation, but like a variation of that. And so we all kind of are able to see sometimes when like some content is like AI generated, and so it all just sounds very. There are just even like patterns, right? That like there's the M dash, and there's just like certain ways that the AI is writing, and so you just want to be mindful of. Like Erica said, it is great for brainstorming. You could say like, "Hey, here are some ideas I'm thinking about. Like, what like give me some more ideas," or like I am an athlete that does this, like what are some things that I could like talk about, like just to like talk to it and like have it give you ideas, but the writing really should be your own.
And then pushing back on parents a little bit who are listening on to this, it's easy to say, do not use AI, talk to me. But the truth is, seniors sometimes can't find certain adults helpful. And that could be a parent, or that could be a certain teacher assigned or someone. But the goal is, okay, fine, if you're going to use AI, you also need another adult mentor or someone else who can help go through that process and talk it out and say like, oh, I don't see you as that person. Like, why would you do that? And so it's getting out of the computer and into a conversation. And so ultimately that's what we're trying to say is like, you can sit down at your computer even without AI, but if you're not having the conversation, then the story is going to like continue hitting a wall, because it needs some back and forth conversation to understand and highlight the growth, curiosity, and resilience and values.
And the people around you are the ones that are best equipped to do that, right? And so like we said, this is not, please don't feed a prompt to AI and say, write me an essay, because like this is actually the process that should be happening when you're drafting a personal statement, right? It's that initial brainstorm. You're like doing a brain dump of like, here are all the different things that I can potentially talk about. You'll start figuring out an outline. You'll do your first draft, right? And then you'll get feedback from different people, feedback from teachers, feedback from parents, feedback from friends. You will likely go through multiple rounds of revisions. I mean, I've worked with kids where we've had like 4 or 5 rounds, right? Because it just, there will always be, the thing with personal statements is you're like, I can always do it better. I can always like change this, right? It's very hard to be like, I feel good about it. It just takes some time to like really get there. And then you'll ultimately get to your final essay. And even then, sometimes you're just like, this is it. I got to send it. But you're just like, I feel like I can keep on editing this continuously. And so This is a process that will take, you know, a few weeks to potentially like a few months, right? Because you want to start it, take a break from it, come back to it with fresh eyes. Um, you know, things change, people grow, people change, even when the process of writing the essay. And so, um, again, this is not something that you should just like cram on a weekend or just assume that you can like crank it out. This is a process that takes time, and you want to make sure you get it right because this is your big essay that you'll be sending to all the colleges and the universities.
And even to scholarship, you could reuse this personal statement because it's
Correct.
more of who you are. And just to highlight one more piece, I think it takes a long time, not for the writing, but for the emotional piece. And we're not, I can't speak for myself, but I know Jessica too, we're not therapists, right? We're just helping you write a solid statement to colleges and universities with clarity, right? And so there's sometimes we're like, hey, that's it, that's good, right? There's going to be more drafts that you can, but the deadline is tomorrow, and we want that university to consider you, so you have to submit it. And you as a student and the parent, you know, supporting and advocating for a student, have to understand the emotional piece to it. It's like, and so we didn't highlight this, but sometimes you want to avoid the story that you haven't fully transformed from, and some stories are just going to be later on in life that you understand that experience. So pick an experience that you've already had some understanding of. And so in thinking about just a case study, right? We use a version of this at every workshop we've offered, but we'll just say Sophia is a West Coast based student. She has a solid GPA of a 4.0, likely a lot of competitive courses that she's taken in AP or honors or, you know, college level. And she's interested in attending law school after college and her graduate. So right now she's applying as for an undergraduate degree, bachelor's. Later on, she wants to study law. And so as an a prospective undergraduate student, she needs a personal statement that will help her stand out. Right? And we could open up for discussion if you're ready, but you know, she has the option to either talk about winning first place in the science fair, or the second option of going through the experience of when her little brother broke her robot. And kind of interested to hear from you what you would sort of play around with in the first draft based on what we've shared thus far. Anyway. By the way, there's no right or wrong answer. So Jessica, putting you on the spot before, oh, let's see, there's someone here. B. So Leonardo said B would be probably a more interesting story, and it probably would. It would not be about the little brother. It would be about the experience of whatever came out of the broken robot for the student writing it. Matthew, since your video's on, I'm going to ask if you want to share which one you would potentially want to write
I'd probably write about option B too, but not really sure like how I connect law into her little brother breaking a robot or something like that.
on. Does it have to be about law?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It's about the experience. I always remind seniors, you're not applying to law school right now. You're applying for an undergraduate degree and the experience at a certain institution to potentially lead you to law school. In fact, admissions officers don't believe that students wanting to pursue law will actually pursue law when they graduate from college. So just understand that. And so any experience for a senior right now that has transformed can be very appealing. Jessica, did you want to share anything? I saw you.
What was interesting because I'm like, oh, my little sister, I have a like clear memory of my sister breaking, they have like those pop-up books when back in the day. I mean, I'm sure they still do now, but she broke my book at like 4 years old, and it's a very like searing memory of her like messing with my books. And so like if I were the student, I'd be like, my first experience of like her messing with my books, my love of books somewhere in there, embed that in. Maybe I argued something with my parents and try to like, I don't know, turning it into like a courtroom at the age of 4, right? Maybe that's a way to connect it to law. And like I think there's ways you could do it. But I don't think that's not to discount like the winning the first place in the science fair. If that was something meaningful to Sophia, like she could talk about how like whatever project she worked on like really helped her in a certain way. Like maybe she's not a science person, but like enjoyed the process of like researching something. I don't know.
And so I will argue for option A based on what Jessica responded to. Sometimes I play devil's advocate with students and I'm like, you don't have to be so jazzy. It could just be the way you started. And it could be as simple as, I didn't think of myself as a scientist until I won first place in the science fair. Suddenly that whole first sentence changes and you're like, what do you mean? But how you open, you catch the attention of the admissions person quickly to want to continue reading. I'm going to play devil's advocate on the entire process and throw everyone for a loop. But a couple years ago, I went to a college counselors breakfast here in the Bay Area, 8 of the 8 best colleges, and these are very small these are very small colleges within the United States. It's like the Claremont McKenna College, like I think McKinley, and I forgot which other one stands out, but the one that admissions officer that shocked me was, she said, I love AI because it could filter college, essays. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're not even reading the essays, but they did read it at some point. So they're just in the first round of admissions trying to like filter those students who are going to be eligible in the class of applicants that is applied. And then at some point, this small group of universities and colleges get together in a room and they discuss, and then they make the hard decisions in a smaller setting. So they will read the essay if you get to that point in the conversation. And if you're at that point in the conversation, you definitely want to be considered, right? So, how you open will, but AI, is also taking a place in the admissions world, and we don't know what that's going to look like and how the admissions officers are going to set the algorithm up. So it's better to just write a genuine story that you're excited to write about and that people around you will be reading. Because like I said, this is not just used as a personal statement for the Common App. It could be used for a scholarship. And those people are probably low funded and you do have actual people reading those essays. Jessica, I saw you want to say something.
Well, I think like schools are just dealing with a crushing volume of applications more than ever before, right? And so like this is why this part is so important. Yes, you need to meet all the criteria and all the thresholds, and you have to have the GPA, but like Sophia has all these things. Great. So she made that initial cut. What is she going to say so that like on paper she seems interesting, and like the goal is to have someone in that room fall in love with you and go to bat for you, right? Because like everyone, the way admissions officers usually read, there's a lot of them. They like each get their own little case of students, not a little, but like a lot of students. They have to read their files, and then they basically have to go into like a committee room and like they're going to go to bat for the kids that they like love. And so how do you find a way to have one of these people, the person that's reading your application, go to bat for you in a room, right? When like some of these hard decisions are being made. And so like that is the goal when you're writing this essay. How do you make it in a way that is like true to you, right? You want to make someone fall in love with you.
Yeah. So like I said, like option A could be, but it has to be, you know, I wasn't going to be a scientist and then I went, or it could be when my little brother broke my robot. Like this is what happened. I can't think of something exciting, but the story already opens up with excitement just from that prompt. So just think about different ways you can open. And again, these won't come immediately. Sometimes the brainstorming in the first draft is like the simple story. When my little brother broke my robot, I was mad. I won first place in the science fair after like trial and error the years before, right? It's that first draft you have to get through in order to then continue with drafts that make it that appealing to everyone. So we're going to read you the prompt, and then we're going to talk about the fact that we are not going to have a final essay during the session, but we want you to walk away with a better understanding of how personal statements work and the ones that open doors. So we're going to go through this activity and spend time doing it, but also debriefing it. But we also want to leave you with our contact information and make sure that everyone walks away knowing that we are available. We will offer free discovery or complimentary calls in the initial round to continue that journey as the fall approaches and deadlines approaches for seniors, but also for juniors thinking ahead, ways to connect and have conversations leading to that, or even freshmen and sophomores. My website is Ray Education. Jessica's Jessica Feliciano collegeprep.com, and we'll email all those in attendance information of this, as well as any pertinent handouts or things continue to be helpful.